Why do I need to learn about the family of Aqil? Teach me about that which is modern. The reality is we study areas of history like the biography of Al-Aqil because of the fact that, number one, they deserve our study. Meaning what? Meaning the sacrifice that family gave on the 10th of Muharram should mean that each and every Shia and each and every Muslim in the world today should be able to tell you about that family inside out. That when somebody asks you, tell me about the family of Aqil, you should be able to reply back to them like a hard drive, ready to give information. Because the amount they gave towards the religion of Islam should mean we give them as much credit as we give Aba Abdullah, number one. Number two, history repeats itself. What happened with Muslim bin Aqil, and what happened with Aqil, and what happened with Abu Talib, will repeat itself with our own people. Why? How many of you have heard that Aba Abdullah had 18,000 people who said, we will help you? And how many turned up? 72. In the same way today, we have an imam who is waiting for us. And there are many who will come forward and say, Assalamu alayka ya sahib al-asr wal-zaman. Assalamu alayka ya Khalifat al-Rahman, ya Sharik al-Quran, ya Ka'bat al-Iman, ya Imami, wa Imam al-Insi wal-Jan. Yet when the crunch time comes, how many of us sacrifice each and every moment of our life for the Imam? The reason you study that event in history is because you know that each part of history will repeat itself. And that's why what you find is that Rasulullah on many occasions, he would show you parts of history which repeat themselves. For example, Rasulullah was one day talking about Dhul Qarnayn. When he was speaking about Dhul Qarnayn, he said, Dhul Qarnayn was struck twice. Likewise, you have somebody amongst you who will be struck twice. Who was it? Ali ibn Abi Talib was struck twice in his life. The first time he was struck was in Khandaq. And the second time he was struck was by Ibn Muljim on exactly the same place. Because when Ibn Muljim struck Ali ibn Abi Talib in his sujood, he struck him at the same place Amr ibn Wid struck him on his head. That's why the wound went very deep. Because he knew the exact place to strike Amir al-Mu'mineen. Rasulullah highlighted how history will repeat itself. In the same way Dhul Qarnayn was struck twice, Ali ibn Abi Talib was struck twice. Likewise, for example, Rasulullah said, the worst of the killers of the ancients is the one who killed the camel of Salih. And the worst of the killers of the latter is the killer of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Why? Because he wanted to show us how history repeats itself. Even if we go a step further, Imam Zayn al-Abidin, salawatullah wa salamu alayh, has a beautiful hadith. He says, if you want to see how history repeats itself, look at 7 prophets of God and relate them to your 12th Imam. He says 7 prophets of God, their life is exactly the same as the 12th Imam. So they said to the Imam, which 7? He said Adam, Nuh, Ibrahim, Musa, Isa, Ayyub, and Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. They said to him, oh Imam, what do you mean history repeats itself? How are they similar to the 12th Imam? He said, let me tell you. And this is why we study Muslim and Aqil and Abu Talib. Because look how history relates to each other. He said, Adam and Nuh are similar to the 12th Imam because in the same way Adam and Nuh had a long life, the 12th Imam will have a long life. How many people today come and say, how do you tell me, you Shia, that you have an Imam who's 1,200 years old? Why do you find it hard to believe? If Allah says in the Quran that Nabi Nuh gave da'wah for 950 years and he lived until the age of 3,000, so why do you find it hard that history will repeat itself as well? Then he said, Ibrahim, his birth was a secret. Because Nabi Ibrahim's mother, she couldn't say that she had a child. Why? Because they would have come and they would have killed her. Nimrud would have killed. Likewise, he said Imam al-Mahdi's mother, her birth was a secret. He then said Nabi Musa. Nabi Musa, what happened with him? Nabi Musa, there was a period people thought he went into ghaibah. Because when Nabi Musa left Egypt, everyone thought he had died. But where did he go? Madian. Likewise, he said, our 12th Imam, people will think he's away. But just because you can't see him does not mean he's away from you. Then he said what? Then he said, Nabi Isa, he said many people will have different opinions about Nabi Isa. In the same way, many people have different opinions about the 12th Imam. Nabi Isa, some people said he is God. Others said he's the son of God. Others said he's a prophet of God. Imam al-Mahdi, some people say he's number 12. Others say he still isn't born. Others say he's the son of Imam al-Hassan. So you find many different opinions. Then he said Ayyub. He said, what's the relationship between Ayyub and the 12th Imam? He said Ayyub had to be patient after much difficulty. Our 12th Imam is patient after much difficulty. And then he said the relationship between Muhammad and Imam, look how history comes together. Look how history can repeat itself. He said Rasulullah stood up for justice. In the same way, Imam al-Mahdi will stand up for justice. Therefore, you found that when we study history, we study to bring two areas together in order that we do not make the same mistake those people made with Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Let's look at the hadith in question. Rasulullah states, قال يا عقيل. Listen to the hadith so we are able to dissect it. قال يا عقيل إني أحبك حبين. O عقيل, I love you for two reasons. I have two loves for you. حبا لك. Love because of who you are. وحبا لحب عمي أبي طالب إياك. And I love you because my uncle Abu Talib loved you. وَإِنَّ وَلَدَكَ مَقْتُولٌ فِي نُصْرَةِ وَلَدِيَ الْحُسَيْنِ عليه السلام. And that your son, O Aqil, will be killed. In which way? Trying to help my son Hussein. How do we examine this hadith? Number one, why does Rasulullah call Imam al-Hussein waladi? When we know that Imam al-Hussein is his grandson, not his son. Number one. Number two, who was Abu Talib? And why is there so much controversy about the grandfather of Muslim? Number three, who was Aqil? And why do many people find it hard to think that Aqil was a great figure in Islamic history? Number four, who was Muslim bin Aqil? When was he born? And did he see Rasulullah or no? And how did Imam al-Hussein praise him? And what was his stand for Imam al-Hussein? Let us dissect the hadith in this way. And by the end of this lecture, you would have known al-Aqil inside out. Let's look at it from the beginning. Number one, the first question we ask is the hadith states, يا عقيل إني أحبك حبين حبا لك وحبا لحب عمي أبي طالب إياك وإن ولدك مقتول في نصرة ولدي الحسين. Rasulullah calls Imam al-Hussein waladi. Even though many people know Imam al-Hussein is not the son of Rasulullah, but Rasulullah calls him what? He calls him his son. Some people will say that is trivial. So what if Rasulullah calls him his son? What reverberations will that have? This statement of calling Imam al-Hussein Rasulullah's son was one of the most important political and religious statements in Islamic history. Why? Because after Rasulullah died, many people came forward and said that leadership cannot reach you if you are from the mother. In other words, if you are from the daughter, you cannot be a leader. Why? Because they said that leadership can only come from the father. If your father relates to Rasulullah, then yes, you can be a leader. You can inherit leadership. But if you are related to Rasulullah through the daughter, then no, you cannot inherit relationship. And therefore they came forward and said that Hussein is the grandson and he is not the son. And because Hassan and Hussein are the grandsons, they do not deserve to be the A'imma or do not deserve to be the Khulafa. Banu Abbas once came forward, what did they say? They said, we are related to Rasulullah through the male and you are related through the female. Why? Because we know the Imams of Ahlul Bayt are related to Rasulullah through Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. So many people came and said that your relation is not as great as Banu Abbas. Because Banu Abbas is from the males, whereas Banu Abu Talib are from the female. That's why you found many came forward and said that Hassan and Hussein are the grandsons. They are not the sons, and they do not deserve to be the sons, especially in the time of Bani Umayyah. For example, Muawiyah bin Abi Sufyan had a servant called Dhakwan.